Okay, are you ready?
I think so.
Because today we are diving headfirst into some seriously twisted tales. Grimm's fairy tales, to be
Oh,
exact.
I know these stories.
Everyone thinks they know them. Bedtime stories, happy endings, all that. But
You're not quite.
not quite is right. These original versions, let me tell you, they are dark.
They are dark.
They make you rethink everything you thought you knew about fairy tales.
They really do. Because you're right, we grow up with these sanitized versions, and they're all nice and sweet. But the originals, they were meant to be cautionary tales.
Yes, like The Fisherman and His Wife.
Yeah.
This story just throws it in your face, the whole be careful what you wish for thing.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
got this poor fisherman, right? And he stumbles upon, what else? A magical fish.
Of course, what
And the
else?
fish is like, hey, I'll grant you wishes if you let me go.
Classic.
Typical fairy tale stuff. But here's where it gets interesting.
It's never the person who makes the deal who's the problem.
Exactly. It's the wife.
Always the wife. It's always the wife. It's her ambition. She wants more and more and more. She's never satisfied.
Yeah, I mean, I can see you want a better house, a nicer place to live. Okay, fine. But then it's a palace, and then she wants to be king, and then she wants to be emperor. Like, where do you go from there?
Oh, she goes for the ultimate, doesn't she?
Yeah.
She wants to be God.
She wants to control the sun and the moon.
Control the universe. That's how much.
Yeah, and it's like, hello, red flag. That's never going to end well.
Talk about overreach, and what happens, they end up right back where they started with absolutely nothing.
It really makes you think twice about always chasing after the next big thing. Like, are we ever really satisfied? It's like this story is a warning about, like, modern consumerism and always wanting more.
I think that's what makes it so relevant even today. It's that whole idea that, maybe happiness isn't about having it all, but about appreciating what you have.
And if we're talking about cautionary tales, the juniper tree is about as dark as they come.
Oh, the juniper tree is dark. Murder, jealousy, a haunting song of revenge. We are not in Disney territory anymore.
No. But it does make you think about, like, the consequences of our actions,
Yeah.
Like the stepmother, she
Yeah.
lets her jealousy drive her to do something absolutely awful.
Yeah, and it seems like she gets away with it at first.
Right.
But then the truth has a way of coming out
It always does.
in the most unsettling way. I mean, can you imagine? This young boy comes back as a bird and sings this haunting song that reveals everything. It's chilling, but it's also kind of poetic. Like, you can't escape the truth no matter how hard you try to bury it.
It's interesting, though, right, how these stories can be so dark and intense, but then there's also this element of, I don't know, like hope and even humor woven in.
Oh, for sure. It's like they find that balance. You get the darkness, the cautionary stuff, but then you also get these stories of resilience, of wit and cunning winning out, especially when it comes to the underdog. It's like a reminder that even in the darkest of times, we can outsmart our fears and find a way to overcome those challenges.
It's true. Like, look at the brave little tailor. I mean, this guy's all talk at first, bragging about slaying giants.
But then he actually has to face them.
Right. And he does. But not with, like, brute strength. It's his cleverness that saves him.
He uses his wits and a little bit of trickery. It's a good reminder that intelligence and resourcefulness can be just as powerful, if not more so, than just sheer strength.
It's true. It's that whole brains over brawn thing. And then there's Hansel and Gretel, which honestly freaked me out as a kid. But you've got to give those kids credit. Abandoned in the woods, facing down a witch who wants to eat them. That's like worst nightmare fuel.
Absolutely terrifying.
But they use their smarts, leaving that trail of breadcrumbs.
Or were they pebbles?
Pebbles. And that's important. That little detail just highlights how clever they are. They're adapting to the situation, using what they have to outsmart the witch. They are resourceful.
It just shows you how resilient we can be when we need to be. Sometimes it takes an absolutely terrifying situation to bring that out in us.
It's true. And of course, we have to talk about clever Elsie. Now, she is a whole other kind of clever. I mean, she's always imagining the worst possible thing that could happen, but in the most exaggerated way.
It's satire, really. And it's amazing how her anxieties, which seem completely irrational on the surface, they actually end up saving the day. It makes you wonder if sometimes a little bit of, I don't know, out-of-the-box thinking, even if it's rooted in worry, can actually be a good thing.
Maybe those what-if spirals aren't always a bad thing. But, it's not all about outsmarting the bad guys and trickery in these stories. There's a whole other side to Grimm's fairy tales. a side that shows the power of love, the importance of family, and what it really means to be kind.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, there's darkness and danger, definitely. But woven throughout these stories, you also find this incredible emphasis on love and perseverance, their ability to transform people and situations. It's like no matter how lost you are, how dark the woods get, there's always hope.
The Seven Ravens is a great example of that. I mean, you've got this sister who is totally devoted to her brothers, and she goes on this incredibly dangerous journey to break the curse that turned them into ravens.
That's love. And that determination, it speaks volumes about the strength of family and what we'll do for the people we love. Plus, you have all these magical transformations, which just add another layer to the story, a sense of hope and change.
Oh, and Sweetheart Roland. Now, that's the story that always sticks with me. It's got it all. True love, an evil stepmother, a daring escape.
And a talking horse. Let's not forget about Falada.
That's right, Falada the Talking Horse. How could I forget? But it's more than just your typical fairy tale romance. There's real suspense there. You're on the edge of your seat the whole time, wondering if love will actually conquer all or if deceit will win out.
It makes you think about who you can really trust, even when things seem genuine.
Exactly. And then there's Iron Hands. Now, he's not your typical fairy tale prince. He's not out there slaying dragons. He's learning about humility and compassion from a wild man who lives in the woods.
It's such a refreshing take on what it means to be a hero. Iron Hans challenges all those traditional ideas about strength and power. He teaches the prince that true strength comes from within, from understanding yourself and connecting with something bigger.
It's about the journey, not just the destination,
Yep.
right?
Exactly. It's about the lessons we learn along the way, the transformations we undergo.
And speaking of journeys, we have to talk about the water of life. I mean, talk about a wild ride. You've got this prince searching for a magical cure, facing down all these impossible tasks, meeting mysterious dwarves.
It's like he's on a crash course for personal growth. He has to face his fears, make incredibly difficult decisions, and he has to figure it all out with very little guidance.
And sometimes the path to happily ever after isn't a straight line, is it?
Not at all. It's messy and unpredictable. There are wrong turns and setbacks, and sometimes you have to make really tough choices, even when you're not sure which path to take.
And that's life, isn't it? Okay, I have to bring up the Goose Girl. That story always resonated with me. I mean, can you imagine being a princess, stripped of everything you know and love, forced to live as a goose girl?
Talk about a fall from grace. But through it all, she never loses sight of who she is. And of course, she has Falada, the talking horse, by her side.
We can't forget Falada. He's the best friend a girl could ask for. I mean, a
Right.
talking horse who helps you reclaim your rightful place. What more could you want?
Right, he's the epitome of loyalty and integrity, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there are those who will stand by you.
And of course, we can't forget about Snow White and Rose Red. I mean, who doesn't love a story about kindness and compassion? Two sisters, a mysterious bear, a curse that needs breaking. It's just the classic.
It really is. And it reminds us that true beauty isn't about what's on the outside. It's about how we treat others, the kindness we show, the compassion we offer.
And then there's the two brothers, a stark reminder that our choices have consequences. One brother, he chooses greed and selfishness, and it leads to his downfall. The other brother chooses kindness and compassion, and he is rewarded for it.
It's almost like a fable, isn't it? A simple, straightforward message about the power of our choices. What we put out into the world matters. It shapes who we become and the impact we have on those around us.
It's funny how these stories, they really stay with you, even after you've, grown up.
They do, don't they? It's like they've become part of us somehow, part of our collective imagination. I mean, we can tell ourselves we've moved on from fairy tales, but I think those themes, those symbols, they pop up everywhere, don't you think? In books, in movies, even in just the way we talk about things.
Totally. It's like those images, especially from Grimm's, I mean, they're so vivid. Like, take the Enchanted Forest. That's practically a character in itself.
It is, isn't it? You could even say it's like this archetype, the enchanted forest. It represents the unknown, a place that's both scary and exciting at the same time. That's where these characters really figure out who they are, by facing their fears and going through these crazy trials.
It's like that saying, right? The forest sees all. But you can't talk about Grimm's fairy tales without mentioning all the talking animals. You've got your helpful birds, your clever foxes, your not-so-friendly wolves. They just add this whole other layer of magic and mystery to the stories.
You really do. And I think they often act as these guides or sometimes tricksters, representing different parts of what it means to be human. Like the loyal horse or the sly fox or the big bad wolf. They tap into something primal, our instincts, our fears. It's what makes the story so captivating.
And sometimes terrifying. I still remember having nightmares about the wolf in Little Red Riding Hood when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah, that wolf. Dressed up like grandma. So creepy. But also kind of brilliant. I mean, it plays on that fear of the unknown, the idea that things aren't always what they seem. That's a big theme in a lot of these stories, isn't it?
Totally. So we've traveled through these dark woods, met some seriously wicked stepmothers, and even had a chat with a few talking animals. We've learned about greed, resilience, the power of love, and so much more. What do you think it all means for us here in the real world? I mean, what can we take away from these stories?
Well, that's the beauty of it all, isn't it? These stories, they give us this timeless wisdom, these lessons that are still relevant, all wrapped up in these really captivating narratives. I mean, they make you think about the choices you make, the impact your actions have, and how important human connection really
Right.
is.
It's like they hold up a mirror, these stories. And they show us that even though times change, people are still people.
Mm.
Those basic truths about human nature, they never really go away.
Exactly. And more importantly, I think they remind us that even when things feel really dark and uncertain, there's always hope. Whether it's the power of love to change things, or good triumphing over evil, or just the incredible resilience of the human spirit. These stories, they offer us these little glimmers of hope, these reminders that we can face our own challenges with courage and compassion no matter what. It's really inspiring when you think about it.
Well said. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a whole new appreciation for Grimm's fairy tales after this. They're not just bedtime stories to scare kids. They're like these reflections on what it means to be human. Timeless reflections.
And I think that's why they continue to resonate with people generation after generation. They make us think, they make us question things, and they remind us of the power of stories, our own stories, and the stories we share with each other.
It's like the magic never really fades, does it?
Not if we don't let it.
So next time you find yourself wandering through the, metaphorical forest of life, think about those lessons you learned from Grimm. You might be surprised at what you remember.
Exactly. And who knows? You might just find your own happily ever after along the way.
That is all the time we have for today's deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring those twisted tales, and remember, sometimes the darkest stories hold the brightest truths.